All right, let's go now to this diplomatic standoff between Australia and Russia that has Labor and the coalition trading blows today. This morning, reports revealed that a Russian diplomat is refusing to leave the site. It's a building site, it's not yet an embassy, where Moscow was planning to build a new building until the Commonwealth, of course, terminated the lease over national security concerns. The opposition leader Peta Credlin said the Russian man should have the book thrown at him if he is indeed breaking the law. Diplomatic immunity, though, we'll get to that in a moment. However, the PM said, look, he's just a bloke on a blade of grass. This is not a national security risk. Now, in breaking news this afternoon, Russia has launched a High Court challenge to the government's move to tear up their lease on that block of land, which, of course, they now prevent them building an embassy due to legislation having passed the parliament. Joining me now to pull this all apart, Senior Analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Dr. Malcolm Davis. Malcolm, thank you for your time. I'm trying not to make it as complicated as it perhaps sounds, but they had a Russian embassy, they had a block of land, they wanted to move closer to that just immediate ring around Parliament House for those who don't live in Canberra. That's now been prevented because of legislation going through the Parliament. They never owned the land, it was always a lease. Australia continues to own the land that all embassies are on. But they are now going to challenge this in the High Court. Give us your take.
Look, as you say, they don't own the land. It's Australian territory, which ultimately means we have control over that territory. I think that the Prime Minister quite correctly decided to tear up the lease for national security grounds. The simple fact is that had the Russians built that embassy there, they would have been in a prime location to be able to eavesdrop on communications within Parliament House and to listen in on private conversations. And by the way, that site for the proposed Russian embassy is right next door to the Chinese embassy. So the Chinese embassy is very well located to eavesdrop on communications and conversations happening in Parliament. But to get back to the Russians, essentially, they're not getting that land. They're not going to be able to build that lease, build that facility on that site of land. And the individual that's camping out there now in that white shed, he may be a Russian diplomat, he may be some person that's been requested to go there and given diplomatic immunity, but ultimately he has no control over that land, and I think Australian law will see him removed at the right time.
We can also withdraw his diplomatic immunity if it gets to the point that he's not going to move, although I suspect a few cold nights in Canberra in a demountable might change his mind, although he's a Russian, I should remember that. He's a Russian, he's probably used to the cold weather. But we can withdraw that diplomatic immunity if it gets to that, can't we?
Absolutely. And, we can quite easily cut off access to food, to energy, electricity and so forth, running water. That all comes from outside that parcel of land. So we can make life difficult for him if he refuses to budge. And quite honestly, I think it would be a good idea to hold a Ukrainian folk festival to keep him entertained, because frankly, this man is a member of the Russian diplomatic corps. He should not be on that parcel of land, and so we're working within the law to remove him from that location.
I like how you think. Right, let's go to that announcement today. Australia's first National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Air Vice Marshal Darren Goldie. Now, give us a sense about Goldie the man. I don't have any experience of meeting him in the past. We've already got a number of cybersecurity outfits in Canberra too, Malcolm. So why is this one different? What's the benefit of this role? I mean, is it a coordinating entity to make sure the left arm's talking to the right arm? Give us a sense of why we're doing it.
Well, Goldie is Air Commander Australia. So he occupies a senior position with the Royal Australian Air Force headquarters to coordinate operational activities of the Royal Australian Air Force. So he's very senior, very experienced, and as such, he'll be ideal to come into this new role of cyber security coordinator. And I think that's what we need to have in terms of cyber. We need to, as you say, there are many different groups all doing cyber security, but what there is lacking is a coordination role and a coordinator to bring those groups together so we have a coherent approach. And the cyber challenge is only going to get worse, both from the Chinese and also from the Russians. So we do need to have a much more coherent approach to cyber strategy, to cyber security strategy, to make sure that our systems are secure. And we've just recently had a rather bad attack by the Russians on a key legal firm, Ebsworth, that has impacts for government. We can't afford to have those continue to happen. The Chinese hacked into the Australian Parliament system in recent years, so we do need a much more coherent and cohesive approach to cybersecurity, and I think Goldie is the right choice in that regard.
And just quickly, so that I could get some context here, I presume when you say there's this overarching coordination role, that Goldie will attend National Security Committee meetings of Cabinet. He'll sit there like the other agency heads and give advice to senior ministers in the room?
I would imagine so, because cybersecurity impacts everything constantly. Our society is constantly connected into the internet. Everything depends on access to the internet and information sharing across the internet. And so, cyber threats and cybersecurity is a key issue that is going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. In that regard, he has to have a key role in the National Security Committee for Cabinet. He can't be left on the outside. He's got to be on the inside, advising government directly.
Well, I'll do a bit of reading over the weekend and see that is the case. Dr. Davis, thank you as always.